There's something unsettling about cemeteries at night. Maybe it's the way the wind carries whispers through the trees, or how the tombstones cast long, eerie shadows under the moonlight. But for Evan Carter, a security guard working the night shift at Blackwood Cemetery, the graveyard became something much worse, something he still can't explain to this day. Blackwood Cemetery sat on the outskirts of a small town in Virginia, a place that had been around for over 150 years. The town had its fair share of ghost stories, but Evan wasn't the type to believe in any of that. He was ex-military, practical, and didn't scare easy. When he took the job as a night guard, it was just that, a job. His first few shifts were quiet. The worst he had to deal with were teenagers sneaking in for dares or drunk locals wandering too close to the gates. But that changed on a cold October night when he saw something, or someone, standing among the graves. It was a figure dressed in black, motionless, standing near an old weather-worn mausoleum. At first, Evan thought it was just another trespasser. He turned on his flashlight and called out, "Hey, cemetery's closed, you need to leave." No response, the figure just stood there. Evan took a step closer, gripping the baton at his side. "I said you need to—" The light from his flashlight flickered, and in that split second, the figure vanished. No movement, no footsteps. It was just gone. Evan's skin prickled. He wasn't the type to scare easily, but something about that moment sent a chill down his spine. The next night, Evan convinced himself that he had imagined it. A shadow, a trick of the light, his mind playing games with him. But deep down, something felt off. His shift started like usual, checking the perimeter, locking the gates, making sure everything was in order. Around 2 a.m., he sat in the small guard shack, drinking coffee and trying to stay awake. That's when he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. A slow, deliberate tapping on the glass behind him. Evan turned fast, expecting to see someone standing there. But there was nothing, just the night stretching out into the rows of gravestones. He stepped outside, scanning the area with his flashlight. Silence. Then, just as he was about to go back in, a whisper. Low, faint, right behind him. "Get out, Evan." Spun around, heart pounding. Again, no one was there. But the air felt different, thicker, heavier, and the cold wasn't just the night air anymore. It felt wrong. The third night was the worst. Evan decided to walk the grounds, hoping to prove to himself that nothing was actually there. His boots crunched on the gravel path as he moved past the headstones, his breath visible in the cold air. He made his way back to the old mausoleum, the same one where he had seen the figure before. And that's when he heard it. A deep guttural breath, not his own. It was coming from inside the mausoleum. Evan's gut told him to leave, but he had a job to do. He stepped forward and peered through the rusted iron bars of the mausoleum gate, and then he saw them. Two hands, pale, bony, with blackened fingertips, gripping the bars from the inside. A face, gaunt and shadowed, staring back at him with hollow, empty eyes. Evan stumbled back, his flashlight slipping from his grip. When he scrambled to pick it up, the figure inside was gone. He didn't wait to find out more. He turned and ran, his heart hammering in his chest. That was his last shift at Blackwood Cemetery. He never went back. To this day, Evan doesn't know what he saw. A spirit? A trick of the mind? All he knows is that something was in that cemetery, and it was watching him. In the quiet town of Fairhaven, there's a cemetery that the locals don't talk about after dark. It's old, so old that some of the tombstones have crumbled to the point where the names are unreadable. The place has always had an eerie reputation, but for Josephine Moore, the town's gravedigger, it was just a job. That was until the night she buried a man who refused to stay in his grave. Josephine had been working at Fairhaven Cemetery for nearly a decade. She had seen all kinds of burials, big, lavish ceremonies and lonely ones where no one showed up. The latter was the case for the funeral of Edgar Wren. Edgar had no family, no visitors. The only people at his burial were the priest, the funeral director, and Josephine, who was in charge of lowering the casket and covering the grave. The casket itself was simple, a cheap pine box, as if whoever handled his affairs wanted him, buried and forgotten as quickly as possible. The service was short. The priest said a few words, and then it was done. Josephine did her job, covering the grave as the sun dipped below the horizon. That should have been the end of it. But that night, when Josephine returned to check the grounds before locking up, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Edgar. Wren's grave was open, not dug up, not disturbed, just open. The dirt that she had carefully packed down only hours ago had been pushed aside, as if something had crawled its way out. Josephine stood frozen, her breath quick and shallow. She shone her flashlight over the grave, half expecting to see an animal burrowed inside. But the hole was too neat, too precise, almost as if the lid of the coffin had been lifted from the inside. Her rational mind told her that someone must have tampered with it. Maybe grave robbers, maybe local kids playing a sick prank. But then, she saw the scratches. Deep, frantic claw marks lined the inside of the coffin lid. Long, jagged scrapes, as if someone had been trying to get out. And then came the sound, a faint, weak scratching. From beneath her feet, Josephine's legs locked up. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to run, but she couldn't move. She just stood there, staring into the open grave, listening to the unmistakable sound of fingernails against wood. Then a whisper, a voice hoarse and broken. "Let me out." Josephine didn't remember running, but the next thing she knew, she was back at her truck, hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. She never went back to that grave. The next morning, when the groundskeeper arrived, he found Edgar Wren's grave perfectly undisturbed, the dirt packed down as if nothing had happened. But Josephine knew what she heard, what she saw. And that night, as she tried to sleep, she swore she could still hear it, a slow, scraping sound just outside her bedroom window. Cedar Hill Cemetery had been abandoned for nearly 50 years, the land reclaimed by overgrown trees and creeping vines. Most people in town avoided it. There were rumors of strange lights at night, of voices calling from the darkness. But for Daniel, an urban explorer, it was just another place to explore. Until he saw her, Daniel had a passion for exploring abandoned places, documenting his findings for his small YouTube channel. He had been to plenty of eerie locations before, old hospitals, empty houses, even an abandoned asylum. But something about Cedar Hill Cemetery felt different the moment he stepped onto the property. It was too quiet. No wind, no rustling leaves, just an unnatural stillness. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something old. He walked through the cracked tombstones, filming as he went. Many of the names were too faded to read. Some graves had been swallowed by the earth. Others had their tombstones broken in half. Then he saw the mausoleum. It was larger than the others, covered in ivy, the stonework cracked with age. Above the entrance, a name was carved into the stone. Margaret Lovell. Something about the name sent a shiver through him. Daniel pushed open the rusted metal gate, stepping inside. His flashlight beam illuminated the interior. Stone walls, an old iron casket resting on a raised platform. Dust covered everything. He stepped closer, adjusting his camera. That's when he noticed something that didn't belong. A chair, a wooden rocking chair sitting in the corner. And in it a figure, an old woman, dressed in a tattered black dress, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes, wide, unblinking, stared straight at him. Daniel stumbled back, his breath caught in his throat. "Ma'am?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Are you okay?" No response. Then slowly, her lips moved. "I've been waiting." The rocking chair creaked. Daniel didn't stay to find out what she meant. He turned and ran, his camera clattering to the ground as he bolted out of the mausoleum. He didn't stop, running until he reached his car. Later, when he checked his footage, he expected to see the woman sitting in the chair. But she wasn't there. Just an empty room. An empty rocking chair, still gently rocking. There's something about cemeteries that unsettles us. Maybe it's the idea of the dead being so close. Maybe it's the quiet. Or maybe it's because we know that not everything buried stays buried. Let me know if you enjoyed these stories, or if you dare to hear more.